It was the kind of summer night that seemed perfect for a road trip. The air was warm, but not stifling. The sky clear, with stars glistening like diamonds on a black velvet canvas. For Greg, Lisa, Dave, and Emily, it was the ideal time to escape the monotony of their small-town lives and venture into the unknown. Greg, the de facto leader of the group, had planned everything meticulously. "We're going to take Route 66 and make it to California in 3 days," he declared confidently. His rusty but reliable van, affectionately named Old Bessie, was stocked with snacks, drinks, and a playlist to keep them entertained for hours. Lisa, Greg's girlfriend, was equally excited. She had always dreamed of seeing the Pacific Ocean, and this trip was a chance to fulfill that dream. Dave, Greg's childhood friend, was looking forward to documenting the trip on his new camera, while Emily, Dave's cousin, was thrilled at the idea of spontaneous adventures and nights spent under the stars. As they set off, the group was in high spirits, laughing and singing along to their favorite tunes. The miles flew by, and soon they were far from the familiar roads of their hometown, surrounded by endless stretches of open highway and the promise of adventure. After a day and a half of driving, they found themselves deep in the heart of Arizona. The landscape had become increasingly desolate, with sparse vegetation and an eerie silence that seemed to hang in the air. It was during one of these silent stretches that Greg spotted a sign for a scenic detour. "Hey, how about we take a little detour?" he suggested. "The sign says there's an old ghost town about 20 miles off the main road." "A ghost town? That sounds awesome," Dave exclaimed, already envisioning the hauntingly beautiful shots he could capture. Lisa and Emily were hesitant but agreed, thinking it would be a fun addition to their trip. They turned onto the narrow, winding road leading to the ghost town, unaware of the darkness that awaited them. As Old Bessie chugged along the dusty road, the landscape grew more barren and unwelcoming. Finally, they reached the outskirts of the ghost town. The place was a relic of the past, with dilapidated buildings, broken windows, and rusted signs creaking in the wind. "This is incredible," Dave said, his camera clicking away. "It's like stepping back in time." The others wandered around, exploring the remnants of a once thriving town. They found an old saloon, a church, and even a schoolhouse. But as the sun began to set, an uneasy feeling settled over them. "Maybe we should get going," Lisa suggested, glancing nervously at the lengthening shadows. "Yeah, it's getting late," Greg agreed. "Let's head back to the main road." But as they made their way back to Old Bessie, they found that the van wouldn't start. Greg tried everything he could think of, but the engine refused to turn over. "Great, we're stuck," Emily said, panic creeping into her voice. "Don't worry, we'll figure it out," Greg reassured her. "Maybe we can find some help in one of the buildings." As darkness enveloped the ghost town, the group decided to split up and search for anything that might help them get the van running again. Greg and Lisa headed towards what looked like an old garage, while Dave and Emily explored a row of houses. It was in one of these houses that Dave and Emily encountered a man. He was tall and gaunt, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. He introduced himself as Jack, claiming to be a drifter who had been staying in the town for a few days. "What are you doing out here?" Dave asked, suspicious. "Just passing through," Jack replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I can help you with your van if you like." Reluctantly, they agreed and led Jack back to Old Bessie. Greg was wary but desperate, and he let Jack take a look at the engine. After a few minutes of tinkering, Jack managed to get the van started. "There you go," he said, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Should be good to go now." "Thanks, man," Greg said, still unsure about the stranger. "You need a ride somewhere?" "No, I'll be fine," Jack replied. "Just be careful on the road. Strange things happen out here at night." With that cryptic warning, he disappeared into the shadows, leaving the group feeling more uneasy than before. They didn't get far before the van sputtered and died again. This time, they were miles from the ghost town and surrounded by pitch-black desert. panic set in as they realized they were truly stranded. "Something's not right," Lisa whispered. "That guy. There was something off about him." Greg tried to stay calm. "We'll just have to spend the night here and figure it out in the morning." They settled into the van, trying to ignore the growing sense of dread. As the night wore on, strange noises began to echo through the darkness. Whispers, footsteps, and the occasional distant scream. Emily clutched Dave's arm. "Did you hear that?" "Yeah," he replied, his voice shaking. "But we need to stay calm. It's probably just animals." But deep down, they all knew that something more sinister was at play. The night seemed to stretch on forever, each minute crawling by with excruciating slowness. The strange sounds grew louder and more frequent, making it impossible to sleep. Shadows danced outside the van, taking on grotesque shapes that played tricks on their minds. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the night, followed by the sound of something scraping against the side of the van. Greg grabbed a flashlight and peered out the window, his heart pounding. "What is it?" Lisa asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Greg replied, "but I'm going to find out." He stepped out of the van, shining the flashlight around. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing nothing but empty desert. Just as he was about to turn back, he saw a figure standing a few feet away. It was Jack, his blue eyes glowing eerily in the light. "What do you want?" Greg demanded. Jack smiled, his teeth gleaming in the darkness. "I warned you. Strange things happen out here at night." Before Greg could react, Jack vanished, leaving behind an unnatural silence. Shaken, Greg climbed back into the van, locking the doors behind him. "It's Jack," he said. "He's out there." "How is that possible?" Dave asked. "We left him miles back at the ghost town." "I don't know," Greg replied, "but we need to stay together and keep the doors locked." Chapter 7. The Descent into Madness. As the night dragged on, the group's fear turned to paranoia. Every creak, every rustle of wind seemed to signal impending doom. They huddled together, their minds racing with thoughts of escape and survival. Dave, unable to take the tension any longer, decided to venture out and look for help. "I'm not just going to sit here and wait to die," he said. "Are you crazy?" Emily cried. "It's not safe out there." But Dave was resolute. He grabbed a flashlight and a pocket knife and stepped into the night. The others watched helplessly as he disappeared into the darkness. Hours passed with no sign of Dave. Emily was beside herself with worry, and even Greg's confidence was waning. Lisa tried to keep everyone calm, but the tension was palpable. Just as dawn began to break, they heard footsteps approaching. Relief washed over them, thinking it was Dave returning. But when the door opened, it wasn't Dave who stepped in. It was Jack. "Looking for your friend?" Jack asked, his voice dripping with malice. "Where's Dave?" Emily demanded. Jack chuckled. "He didn't make it. None of you will." Greg lunged at Jack, but the stranger was unnaturally strong. He threw Greg to the ground with ease, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "You should have listened," Jack said. "This place is cursed. No one who enters ever leaves." Lisa and Emily screamed as Jack advanced on them, his grin widening. But just as he was about to strike, a blinding light filled the van. Jack recoiled, his face contorted in pain. A figure stepped into the light, a woman, her presence calming and powerful. "Leave them be, Jack," she commanded. Jack snarled but retreated into the shadows, vanishing once more. The woman turned to the group, her expression gentle. "You're safe now," she said, "but you must leave this place and never return." With the woman's help, they managed to get the van started. She guided them back to the main road, her presence a soothing balm to their frayed nerves. As they drove away, the sun rose, casting a golden light over the desert. "Who was she?" Lisa asked, still shaken. "A guardian, perhaps," Greg replied. "Someone watching over this place." They drove in silence, each lost in their thoughts. The horrors of the night were behind them, but the memory would linger forever. They reached a small town by midday, exhausted and traumatized. They found a mechanic who fixed the van properly, and after a long, much-needed rest, they continued their journey. But the trip was no longer about reaching the Pacific Ocean. It was about escaping the darkness that had nearly consumed them. They spoke little of the ghost town and the horrors they had faced, each trying to forget in their own way. Years later, the memories of that night would still haunt them. They never took another detour, and they never spoke of Jack or the ghost town again. The darkness they had encountered on that desolate road remained a shadow in their minds, a reminder of the horrors that lurked just beyond the edge of the known world. And somewhere, in the depths of the Arizona desert, a ghost town waited for its next visitors, the whispers of the past echoing through its empty streets.